morning, everyone. Convening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations. It is Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. in conference room 309. If everyone could, well, we don't have too many people on the agenda, but if you could always try to constrict your testimony to about 2 minutes out of respect for the other testifiers. First up on the agenda is SB 306 relating to public information. Members, we do not have any testifiers signed up to testify on this measure, so we'll move on to SB 1129, ST2 relating to procurement. We have the University of Hawaii with written opposition, State Procurement Office in opposition in person to testify.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Bonnie Kahakoi for the State Procurement Office. We will stand on our written testimony in opposition and providing comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we also have the Hawaii State Public Library System in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? What's the next bill? All right, seeing none. Members, any questions? All right, no questions. Let's move on to SB 1138 relating to procurement. First up, we've got State Procurement Office in support.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, Bonnie Kahakoi. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony in support, and we've added a slight language change for clarity. Thank you.
All right, and we've also got the Department of Transportation in support over Zoom. In person.
Thank you, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, and Representative Sayama. Thank you. I'm Tammy Lee, Acting Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. We stand on our written testimony in support of this measure, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all the testifiers we have signed up. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? I've got one for SBO. So you did suggest a small revision, adding that the summary of scores can be disclosed. Can you just kind of describe to the committee what summary of scores is and what it entails? Okay,
so whenever a request for proposal is submitted, the evaluation committee is required to give numeric scores. And from then, the highest ranked offer is the intended awardee. So at a debriefing, normally it's the non-selected offer that will ask for a debriefing, and they will want to know what their scores are, and presumably they want to also know where they stand amongst the scores. So we're saying that the summary of scores, whether it be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people who offered, that will be available, not individual scores, not the evaluation sheet, just the summary of scores, so that the debriefed vendor will know where they stack up amongst the vendors that offered.
So in the summary of scores, there's no company or person identified with each score.
That's correct. It should be ABC or 1, 2, 3 or however the agency wants to identify them. But the debriefing vendor would be, are they second? How close they are to first? Or are they last? So they have an idea where they stack up in the whole evaluation process.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to SB 1383 SD1 relating to the Hawaii Employment Security Law. First up, we've got Department of Labor and Industrial Relations in support.
Good morning, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, and Representative Sayama and Capella, Jay Butay for DLIR. Thank you for hearing this governance package that proposes to institute a permanent 0.1% assessment beginning January 2024 on all contributory employers. The UI program is 100 federally funded to cover costs with administering the program, but it doesn't cover the cost and maintenance for our IT. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers we have scheduled today. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? I've got one quick one for DLIR. And I understand, I mean, hopefully we'll be putting in a new UI system soon. What is the expected yearly maintenance fee for the new system
For the modernization,
after it's modernized?
yeah. let me
Hopefully.
Bring up our administrator for our UI, and Pereira Eustaquio.
Oh, yes.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Ann Eustaquio, UI Administrator. So we have posted the RFP. It is now being looked at by vendors. We estimate, so we don't have any proposals in yet, but we have gone and looked at other state systems, and we estimate the annual maintenance, so maintenance and operations of the system, to be $4 million.
Do you have a breakdown for just maintenance? Because that's maintenance and operation.
It comes together. That's what they
Okay.
charge us to maintain and operate the system for us, not staff-wise.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions? Yeah, if not, let's move on to SP 415 ST2 relating to wages. We've got General Contractors Association with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Skuda on behalf of GCA. We just stand on our written testimony providing comments. Available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters in support.
Chair, members of the committee, we stand on our written testimony. Just would like to add that this is an important measure to stop wage fraud and the cash payments on jobs that has been occurring across the state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members. Sorry, anyone else here to testify on this measure? Yep, Director Butai.
Thank you, Chair. We stand on our testimony in support and offer clarifying amendments to hold a general contractor liable for any unpaid wages and interest that a subcontractor at any tier owes to its employees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Aloha, Chair and committee members. Chris Delaney with Pacific Resource Partnership. I submitted my written testimony. Hopefully you have it. But we're in strong support. We stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just a note to testifiers, there's a little box to check if you want to testify in person. Just helps us with the flow of things. Not necessary though. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, anyone else here to testify on this measure? Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the last item on the agenda, SB 814 ST2, relating to electronic information technology accessibility for persons with limited English proficiency. We've got two testifiers today. First up, Office of Language Access with comments.
Good morning, Chair Matoyoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, and member of the committee. Apirak Bamrungruan, Executive Director for the Office of Language Access. We stand on our written testimony offering comment on this measure and available for any question committee may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Last up, we have Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights in support.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. The Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights stands in strong support of this measure. We believe it's going to be a significant step forward in nudging the state into compliance with both federal and state laws that require agencies to provide their services through interpreters when needed and or translation of certain vital documents. I think from my testimony, you've seen that Hawaii's had quite a sordid history with complaints, all of them successful, filed against the state. Most recently was the Department of Labor. And now there's still one pending, I believe, against the Department of Health for omissions arising during COVID. So thank you for your support of this measure.
Okay, thank you. We have a number of testifiers that also wrote in support. Is there anyone here to testify today? Anyone else here to testify on this measure? Okay, members, any questions? All right, now let's recess for decision making. Recess. reconvening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations for decision-making. First up, we've got SB 306 ST1 relating to public information. Chair's recommendation is to amend this bill to conform with the House version of this bill, which is HB 572 HD1. Members, any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 306 SD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella?
Aye.
Representative Martinez is excused. Representative Sayama?
Aye.
Representative Tam?
Aye.
Representative Alcos also excused. Chair, your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. And moving on to SB 1129 SD2 relating to procurement. We are going to, Chair's recommendation is to adopt the recommended revisions by UH and the State Procurement Office to remove the requirements of HRS 103D-302B. I couldn't find any explanation of why the Senate put that in there, but we can talk about that in conference. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on SB 1129 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absences of Martinez and Alcos. Would anyone like to vote WR or nay? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 1138 relating to procurement. We're going to be adopting the SPO suggested amendment allowing the summary of scores to be included. Any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 1138. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to SB 1383 relating to the Hawaii Employment Security Law. Page 3, line 4, we're going to do a small change to make it sections in accordance with sections 383-63 to 383-69 instead of 68, just to include one more subsection of the HRS there. We're also going to be blanking the percentage amounts, but putting into the committee report that it was 0.01%. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 1383 SD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any nays or reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Members, moving on to SB 415 SD2 relating to wages. We are going to be adopting DLIR's suggested amendment, putting construction in to clarify, further clarify the term private and work. I'm going to also be further defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on Senate Bill 415 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting nay or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Last bill on the agenda, SB 814 SD2 relating to electronic information technology accessibility for persons with limited English proficiency. We'll just be further defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair, for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on SB 814 SD2. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting with nay or with reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. We are adjourned.
Hello, everyone. We're convening the committees on transportation as well as the Labor and Government Operations Committee for the purposes of a hearing on our 11 a.m. Tuesday, March 21st agenda. We're here in conference room 309, and we're here to hear SB 968, leading the transportation. First, here we have the Department of Transportation.
Hello, chairs, vice chairs, that's different from DOT, standing in support.
Thank you very much. We have the Department of Accounting and General Services.
Hello, good morning, Chair Todd, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chairs Kila and Garrett, members of the committees. Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. DAG stands on its written testimony offering comments on this measure. Model chairs.
All right, thank you. Next, we have the Ulupono Initiative. In support.
Good morning, Chair Todd, Chair Matayoshi, members of the committees. Micah Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'll stand on our testimony in support of this measure. Just allowing the state to lead by example with some of our sustainable transportation choices seems very sound. I mean, it's a great signal to the community and what we believe in, and really showing a commitment to look at these different options that can support our transportation choices in the future. Thank you very much, chairs.
All right, thank you. And next, we have the Climate Protectors Hawaii, Mr. Boland.
Thank you. Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this measure. It provides the opportunity for the government to lead by example, as the last speaker said, with a variety of different options, all of which make sense for commuters and for eliminating greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to do some of the things that we need to do to move us toward a less car dependent, more commuting ability situation with sharing of parking spaces and bikes, et cetera. Thank you. We support this measure strongly and hope you will pass.
All right, thank you. That's all the testifiers who've indicated they're going to be here in person or on Zoom. Would anyone else like to testify on this measure? Okay, please proceed.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Kiana Otsuka. I'm here on behalf of the Hawaii State Energy Office, and we stand on our written testimony and available for questions if needed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? If not, members, do you have any questions on this measure for any of our testifiers?
Sure.
Okay, Rep. Onishi.
Yes, start with the Department of Accounting and General Services. Good morning, Keith. Thanks
Hello.
for being here. You brought up the issue about the feasibility to do the work to retrofit infrastructure for EV. Do you have like an inventory of how many state parking lots, how many stalls, what kind of power? I mean, this is a Senate bill, so it's been going for the last 2 months, right?
Right.
It's been moving. Do you have any information on the estimated costs?
Yeah, so I can give you a ballpark idea of what it would cost to electrify, according to our analysis, on a stall would be about $18,000 per stall. Plus then also there's the necessary infrastructure like the charging unit itself, right, the charging station itself. And then any additional upgrades to the electrical system like the main switch gear, within the building or that parking facility would add additional costs. So, but on average it's about $18,000 per stall is what we're looking at.
And how many stalls?
That we currently have electrified?
No, not electrified, in total.
Total stalls, gosh. Yeah, I mean, we have all the information in terms of the number of parking facilities with the stalls listed, but I don't have that number right in front of me at this second, so.
Okay, maybe if you could share that.
Yeah,
with us,
we'll get that to the
we
committee,
share at
certainly.
some point.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, any additional questions? Rep. Matayoshi.
One for DAGs. Sorry, I was talking to Chair Todd, so if you answered this question, my apologies. In your testimony, you said that you don't manage all lots. What percentage of the state lots do you manage?
Oh, percentage
Or
of
just
lots? I don't
generally,
know.
like
I mean,
ballpark, 50%, 70%.
well, DOT has their own, parking facilities, so maybe 75% of parking lots are managed by DAGs.
Between you two, though, you're pretty much all of them?
Yeah, I would think so. Us, and then DOE probably has their own as well, and so DLNR, yeah. So maybe we're 60%, and maybe you're like, probably 35%, and the others are 5%.
As long as you guys are most of them, that makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah.
And then, are there bike storage lockers in use right now?
Not that I'm aware of. We have racks, bike racks, but no storage lockers.
Okay.
With charging capability.
Do people generally, are those racks in use? Or not, are they pretty empty?
I can tell you just from my
Anecdotal, yeah.
Yeah, it's, they're not heavily utilized. I think there's some concerns about theft, with those particular racks. Even with strong locks, people still get their bikes stolen, or damaged, vandalized, et cetera, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you, Keith.
Yep.
Rep. Evslin?
Yeah, in your testimony, it said, as Rep. Onishi said, the conversion of all existing parking stalls to be electric vehicle charging ready will be challenging. But the bill just calls for new parking stalls to be EV ready and existing stalls to be retrofitted based on serving existing electric vehicles. Right, so unless I'm misreading it, there's nothing in the bill, as I understand, which would require all existing stalls to be EV ready, right?
Yeah, I mean, this bill's morphed over time, and so this may be, from some of the testimony that we've submitted in the past, just to ensure that is kept top of mind because you may introduce possible changes and et cetera. We don't want to go back, right? So.
And then do you use $18,000 to put a charger into an existing stall? Do you have a cost estimate for new stalls to be EV ready?
It's about the same, yeah. According to Public Works, it's about approximately the same. Because, you're still having to, well, I should say retrofitting is probably a little more costly because you have to core and you're going to have to do all these other, improvements. Whereas under new construction, you can kind of build it in, right, as you're forming, the parking facility itself. So, but yeah, I mean, it's give or take, it's pretty close.
I guess maybe I'm confused. The EV ready requirement, though, is just pre-wiring and not an actual charging receptacle, right?
Yeah, but you still have to put the infrastructure in, right? So, and you also have to make sure that the electrical system can handle the eventual build out, right, to install those EV chargers. That's the big issue, right, is making sure that you have capacity. And that's, that does cost money to build that into the facility.
Sorry, so is it still that's in the ballpark? Maybe
According to what I'm being told by Public Works Division, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Of course, we won't know until we actually go out to bid, right, and have those put into the bid documents.
All right. Okay, Rep. Onishi?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a follow-up for DOT. Hi, thank you for being here. The Airports Division recently built a couple of car rental facilities, right? So those car rental facilities, were every stall made EV ready?
No, not every stall. So the way the car rental facility was built was to ensure that we had sufficient load for electric vehicle charging stations to come in, but not every stall was wired. The difficulty was not, we didn't know what kind of volumes the rental car companies would need in different areas, and we didn't know where to build things out to. The way technology works with charging stations, after 2 or 3 years, something else comes in to take its place. So we wanted to be sure that we had the load that was available, that was necessary to make sure that we had the extra capacity for charging stations without really committing too much funding towards anything that could be wasted.
So what you're saying is that the center has the capacity for every stall to be chargeable.
So the center has a capacity for most of the stalls to be chargeable. We have the capacity to add PV stations on top to bring in more load to charge all stalls.
Okay, but there was a decision not to make every stall EV ready because of the potential technology changes that might occur.
That's correct.
That would outdate any existing infrastructure that was put into the building.
I think that's an accurate statement. I think it was more along the lines, though, that there was not enough information to make the determination of where to put the charging stations.
So is the department considering also the future of other types of renewable vehicles such as hydrogen?
We are. At this time, though, the technology in front of us that's being demanded by our rental car companies is EVs, and by the public itself. With hydrogen, it's a little bit more difficult to adjust to, but we're working with Picture to try and see if we can set up a pilot with Japan and California that'll allow us to run a couple of hydrogen vehicles for transport, and that would allow us to start looking at building a hydrogen fueling plant in the Kalihi area near our harbors. It's a good pilot, definitely, but also a good reason to put in another fueling station. Fully understanding that at this time, hydrogen is not the readily available model for light passenger vehicles, but definitely something that we're looking at for heavy vehicles in the future. More so when we're working with our energy office, especially on the hydrogen hub project, we're looking at other areas we can consider hydrogen. For some areas where we have our generators that power microgrids, instead of using fossil fuels, we're looking at seeing how we can convert it to hydrogen instead to get another source of hydrogen power.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rep. Ayu?
Yeah, maybe say energy office? Maybe. Not sure. Dex, be on your toes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just wondering about costs. So, at what rate would we charge, or if we're even charging people to use these stalls?
I'd have to get back to you, but I'd imagine it's depending on what time you're charging.
Okay.
Relative to HECO rates.
Because from my understanding, people who have electric vehicles normally have charging at home, and their rate that they pay at home is much less than what they would pay at some of these stalls, and I don't see them parking in some of these stalls. So I'm concerned that we're making a huge investment and people are still going to go home and charge at home and not park in these stalls because the rate is much more expensive.
I think at the moment, folks living in single-family homes, it's quite easy to charge at home, but folks living in sort of apartment buildings have less access to charging. But I can ask about you're asking about the rates by which we would charge at DAGs?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk to DAGs also about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, members, any additional questions? Rep. Garrett?
Thank you, Chair. Comptroller? Good morning.
Closing my loops this morning.
You know, I remember from my time working for the state that there's quite a bit of demand for parking stalls for state employees.
Yes.
I think our department had a several-year wait list. Are there currently plans for DAGs to build additional capacity? I know that kind of goes away from a policy perspective, going to discourage car use as this bill does, but just from a master plan kind of standpoint, does DAGs have plans to add capacity?
We don't have any plans to build new parking facilities right now, but what we're looking at are ways to utilize what we currently have in a better manner. As an example, there are a lot of parking spaces that are not being utilized. Employees are teleworking, and so it frees up a lot of capacity within the facilities. And so looking at maybe overbooking on some of these facilities or increasing our overbooking of some of these facilities so that we can have more employees taking advantage of those spaces that are going underutilized. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at, what we currently have and how can we possibly use the inventory in a more efficient way.
And you mentioned teleworking. Would you need additional resources to try to allow this kind of a sharing program?
Yeah, one of the issues as we're looking at the bill is, how does automotive, management division, coordinate all of these sharing of, stalls. We'd have to go back and take a look in terms of whether or not we need additional staffing to assist with that. But certainly, if there were some additional funds set aside to help us to develop a program to allow for stall sharing. I don't know that it's going to require funding or not. I think we may be able to work on that program internally without having to use a consultant or use outside services, but it would be good to have at least some funding set aside in case we need to, utilize that to push the program out. So,
okay, thank you, Chair.
All right, members, anything else? Okay, if not, we're going to recess very briefly and then reconvene for decision making. Aloha, we're reconvening our 10:30 a.m. agenda for the purposes of decision-making for the Committee on Transportation as well as Labor and Government Operations. Or this is actually the 11 a.m. agenda, my mistake. So my recommendation for SB 968 is we have a few recommendations. We're going to streamline this a little bit. We're going to keep the section which allows for sharing of state employee parking stalls under DAG's purview. We're going to remove the public housing section from the bill, especially because they weren't even here to testify on it, but maybe premature on that. And we're going to include a study as recommended in DAG's testimony to include charging stations for new construction, retrofitting charging stations in existing parking, but we're not going to include the language around enclosed bicycle storage lockers or charging stations in secured bicycle storage. I think they're probably two separate issues, so we might want to take that up another time, or we'll see how things evolve as it makes its way to the Finance Committee. In addition to that, we'd include some technical amendments for clarity and consistency, as well as redefecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, you good? Okay, seeing that, Vice Chair for the vote on SB 968.
Mahalo, Chair. Voting on SB 968 Senate Draft 2, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Represented by you.
Aye.
Representative Eslin.
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto.
Aye.
Representative Kitagawa.
Aye.
Representative Martin.
Aye.
Representative Onishi.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, members, same recommendation. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. LGO members voting on SB 968 SD2. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella.
Aye.
Representative Martinez.
Aye.
Representative Sayama is excused, as is Representative Tam and Alcos. Chair, your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members.
All right, and we are adjourned. Thank you.